near the back of the grid, came through to pick up a solitary point, 10th place, and had led the championship coming into the weekend, but has dropped down to 3rd place in the standings now. So Joel Erickson is lining up second for Motor Park, and for Carlin it is Lando Norris, who's having his first full season in this championship. Last year's Formula Renault Euro Cup champion, Toyota Racing Series champion, and Northern European champion in Formula Renault, coming here and looking very competitive, very quick. Had a bad start to yesterday's race. He actually got off the line well. He has had trouble getting the car off the line, but he then got swamped through turn 1, dropped to 13th, but came back up the order to finish in 8th place. The Chinese driver, Guan Yuzhu, the 2013 European karting champion, 6th in last year's rookie championship in his first season of F3. Was with Motor Park last year. He switched to the dominating Prema Power team, who lead this year's standings, both in terms of the drivers and teams, and have won the drivers and team standings ever since this version of the championship, the European Championship, was reformed back in 2011-2012. Jake Hughes there, who was racing in GP3 last year, got a couple of race wins in GP3 from reverse grid starts, and has come into Formula 3, competed as a top rookie at Macau, top 6 finish at Macau Grand Prix in Formula 3 at the end of last season, and he's here off the back yesterday of his best results so far in F3 with a 2nd place finish. He did the last round at Hockenheim, got a podium there, podium earlier in the season, but 2nd place his best result so far. And there is the new championship leader, Max Gunter, taking his 3rd win on the bounce yesterday. Utterly dominant, a beautiful display of driving from the German, who was runner-up in last year's championship. He was supreme in the wet qualifying session on Friday. That's why he got pole position for yesterday's race, and he duly won it at a canter. However, he's a bit further back on the grid for this one. He's going to be starting 6th on the grid. He'll be 6th on the grid for race 3 later on today as well. David Beckmann, the youngest driver in the field at just 16, having his first full season. He did most of last season, but he had to miss the first couple of rounds because he was too young. He started this season with Van Amersfoort Racing, but has switched across to Timo Rumpfkar's Motor Park team, the German squad, and prior to this weekend, it was quite a late deal. He'd only had 2 hours in the car at Oschersleben, their local circuit, but has done very, very well indeed. He almost got in the points yesterday and has done very well to be on the 4th row of the grid. Joey Mawson, very, very quick in the wet qualifying session on Friday. The Australian has come from the German Formula 4 Championship, and he was 2nd quickest, but had a 3-place grid penalty from an infringement at Pau at the Pau GP. So had to start 5th in yesterday's race, but got up to 4th. There is a very talented young Indian driver, Jan Daravala, and Daravala getting his 2nd podium finish of the season yesterday with a 3rd place for Carlin. Very close to the tail of Jake Hughes all the way through the race, but never really quite challenged him. Nikita Matsipan has got a couple of good grids today, had a decent qualifying session yesterday. The Russian driver in his 2nd season of F3, 2nd season with the High-Tech Grand Prix team, the British team, and he is there on the 5th row of the grid today. For this one, he's going to be 9th on the grid for the race later on. And there is Mick Sumikko, who finished 9th place in yesterday's race, again coming up from the German Formula 4 Championship, which he was the runner-up last year, and also competing and finishing 2nd in the Italian Formula 4 Championship. And he actually missed a round, missed some races, otherwise he possibly would have won that championship because he wasn't that far behind, but he had to miss one because of a clash with the German championship. There is Ferdinand Habsburg, who's kind of a local hero here because he, although he's Austrian by birth, he has connections with the Hungarian royal family. And Ferdinand's having a good season before the start of the weekend. Has picked up some good results. Yesterday, he actually set the fastest lap of the race. We had dramas early on and was only 15th in the end in the race. So that's the way they line up at the sharp end of the grid for this one. Just a note on the race to come as well, race 3. The grid based on 2nd fastest lap times from that qualifying session yesterday. And this is how close it is in Formula 3, everybody. You've got Joel Erickson on pole for the race later on, Callum Ilott 2nd, Lando Norris 3rd, Guan Yuzhu 4th. And between all 4 drivers, there was 12 thousandths of a second between their best 2nd fastest lap times. In fact, Guan Yuzhu was, until the last lap, looking like he was going to get his maiden F3 pole position, but they all went a little bit quicker, and so he dropped back. So there, the grid is being cleared, engines are being fired up, they're about to go off into the formation lap. Chris Hartley here, trackside, at a slightly overcast but warm, and again slightly humid like it was on Friday, Hungaroring. There are a few dark clouds in the skies, but I think we're going to be at least dry for this race. There are the teams clearing the grid. Alongside me in the Commons box here, it's a very good morning to Leo Gorman.
Chris, good morning. And I just, you mentioned there the qualifying for race 3, very, very close between the top 4, 12 thousandths of a second. If we actually look at the order for this race, P4, Guan Yu Zhu and the Prema Power Team cars are 1 minute 35.26. And they can go all the way to Sato and P12. That's a 1 minute 35.5. It's actually less than 3/10 of a second separating 8 positions on the grid. That is just how astonishingly close that is. And that could just be maybe only slightly overshooting the corner, or maybe not getting down on the throttle at absolute optimum moment exiting the corner. So that's how close it is at the moment. You make one little mistake, one little error, it could send you down the grid. As we get off in the warm-up lap here at the Hungaroring.
And all the drivers went into that qualifying session knowing it was super important, because not only did we give us the grid for this race, but also the race later on. And also they know that it is not the easiest circuit to overtake on here at the Hungaroring. So grid positions absolutely critical. And if you're Max Gunter, you'll be looking to make a good start here to challenge potentially for a podium. But if he doesn't get a good start, it's going to be hard work for him.
One of the things, Chris, about this event is the hand-cooked tyres. All the cars, all drivers have hand-cooked tyres. Very good tyres, very stable. They do last quite lengthy. They don't have a huge drop-off either. They don't necessarily come in incredibly quickly. But it is, as you said, it's a lot more humid today. The temperature is actually up on yesterday. It's supposed to reach in the region of 25 to 27 degrees air temperature today. So early 40s track temperature. That does put a little bit more strain on the tyres throughout this race, which is stop-start. There's no high-speed corners here, so it's not like any particular corner is getting extra stress, as it were. It's stop-start, slow-speed, medium-speed corners, and then a short shoot on the accelerator before stopping again.
That's right. It's only really 2 high-speed corners. That's turn 4, which is taken flat in 6th gear, and turn 11 at the back of the circuit leading onto the back straight, which is taken flat in 5th gear. Otherwise, predominantly 3rd, 4th gear corners. And yes, in qualifying yesterday, a lot of the drivers afterwards saying, you know, it was very hard to string 2 quick laps together because the tyres are getting so hot they're going off. So a lot of the drivers were putting in a quick lap, then letting the tyres cool for a lap, having a slow lap. So after yesterday's 3rd consecutive win, in fact his 3rd win of the season, Max Gunter has moved on to 162 points. The German for Prema Power Team leads the standings by 19 points. Lando Norris is 2nd on 143. Joel Erickson slipping from the lead, or co-lead, because they were joint leaders coming into the weekend, down to 3rd place on 140 points, but with much better grids today. Callum Ilott, 4th on 119. He's your pole sitter for today. Jan Daravala, the Indian driver, 55 points, is 5th. And Ferdinand Habsburg, as I mentioned, having a decent season up until yesterday, is currently 6th in the standings on 51 points as the cars start to make their way up onto the grid ready for our race.
And I think with Gunter as well, he's not just 3 consecutive victories for Maxi, it's actually also 5 consecutive podiums because in the previous 2 races he scored, it was 2 third places at the end of Monza in the first race at Po as well. So he is keen to keep this run going.
Well, his worst result this season is 7th, and he said to me yesterday, you know, I knew at the start of the season to stay patient. If you can't win, then just keep on picking those points up, and it's those points for the races where you're not challenging that add up to, you know, get you in the championship fight, and that's what he's proven. So, lights on, 33 minutes plus 1 lap of racing, round 11 underway. It's Norris with a terrible start, almost stalls it, but he's going to drop way down the order. It's going to be at least mid-pack. In fact, it's going to be probably towards the tail end of the field. Max Gunter then is making a good start at the head of the field. Callum Ilott is having to fend off Joel Erickson. He does so, and leads coming out of the first turn. So it's a British driver from the southern Swede, Joel Erickson, in 2nd place. Joel coming at the race leader, though, trying to go around the outside on the way into turn 2. Doesn't quite make it through there. Guan Yu Zhu has made a reasonable start as well, challenging just behind as they come downhill now, down to the bottom of the valley, and then they're up to top gear already, and it's 6th gear through this mighty quick left-hander. That is one of the very fast corners on the lap. Guan Yu Zhu with a decent start there in 3rd place. Gunter looked quick off the line, but actually hasn't made up any ground once they got to turn 1, so he's still in 6th position. And Lando Norris there with a terrible start. Way down the order. That's been his Achilles heel so far this season, Lee.
Absolutely awful start for Norris. I think what's happened with Gunter is as Norris got slow away, the field kind of compacted slightly as it kind of swarmed around Norris, and where Gunter got initially a very good start, he kind of had to bleed off the throttle initially to actually not have an accident of his own. Norris has dropped all the way down to 16th place. And we've mentioned this so often with Norris so far this season. Bad start. We're in the 11th race race of the season so far, and he can count 8 losses.
Max Gunter having a look at the inside of Beckmann there, but failing to get through. Eilert leads, Erickson second, Gunter third, Jake Hughes is there in 4th place. He was almost 4th on the grid, but he had his last lap time, which was his best lap time, taken away for track limits. And Jake, the former BRDC Formula 4 champion, ending up 5th on the grid. But he's made a place back up. He is 4th. Beckmann 5th. Gunter, as we saw, having a look at him for that position, but stays where he started in 6th place. There is Joey Mawson.
Mawson fighting off Daruvula.
Yeah, they had a go at him. So Mawson is number 96, the orange and black Van Amersfoort racing car. The Australian there, coming under attack from Daruvula, but fending him off for the time being.
And that's Schumacher defending against Habsburg. And we saw yesterday Schumacher defending very, very, very hard when under pressure during the yesterday's race, and really almost taking it to the border, what you can do to defend a position, driving across the circuit in front of opponents. That was for the lower points positions today, and again we see for 9th place Schumacher defending hard. Maxi Gunter 6th place, 3.7 down on race leader Callum Eilert at the moment. I mean, from a neutral point of view, you might look at it as well, this is actually quite good, because you have Eilert, Erickson potentially scoring big points, and Gunter maybe not scoring a huge amount, so this might bring the championship back together. But Gunter and the Prema Power Team boys, maybe a little bit divided for Prema Power Team, because they still got Eilert actually leading the race. Gunter 6th place at the moment. That is, off the top of my head, 10 points in the championship if he finishes there.
That's right. And Callum Eilert's going to get a lot closer to them if he picks up the full 25 to 119. This is getting back up into the mix as they come out of turn 13. You can see they always just cross that sort of dotted line which marks the start of the run into the pit lane, and they drag it back across for this right-hander at turn 14, taken in 4th gear, up to 6th, and then they have to drop down to 2nd gear. And off-camber corners as well here. Something else they have to watch out with the balance of the car. But at the end of that lap, 0.9 of a second, Callum Eilert leads. Erickson in 2nd place. Guan Yu Zhu's 1.8 seconds back in 3rd, and Jake Hughes has dropped back a little bit more in 4th now. And
this is a major race for Callum Eilert, because if you remember at Pole Race 1, he got pole position, he led the first third of a lap. He made a mistake clipping one of the curbs, actually spun him around and out of the race while in the lead. He needs to win this race, because he's actually dropped 43 points behind championship leader Gunter. So if he can actually get a big score here, and Gunter scores very little and Norris doesn't score any, then that's actually quite a significant win for him in the championship stakes.
Yeah, he needs it, otherwise the gap begins to form. But he's won in each of the previous rounds. He took a race win at Silverstone, he took a race win at Monza. Suppose the only event he hasn't taken a race win at yet. There is David Beckmann. I think he's doing a terrific job so far this weekend, with a very limited amount of time in the car that he's had. And of course he's only really just about, when you piece together what he did last season and the start of this season, he's only really just about had one season in racing now, and he's pulling away from that man Max Gunter, the championship leader in the number 3 car, who in turn has started to edge away from Joey Mawson, the Australian. Daruvula in 8th place, Schumacher's 9th, Habsburg is 10th. If you're a fan of Lando Norris, he's made up 1 place. He's got ahead of the Japanese driver Marino Sato, and he's now up into 15th position. His next target is another British driver. He's got to try and find a way past Harrison Newey.
And this is a challenge for Lando Norris. As you see replays of the start, and you will see it's the 4th car. It's the 2nd car in there, and Norris gets an initial start, then he bogs down, and as you see, the cars are actually jutting into the middle of the road as they try to avoid Norris's semi-stalled car.
Terrific reactions from Jake Hughes, who was right behind him on the grid, of course, and just about managed to avoid him, and that's why he's 4th now.
I think this is where kind of Gunter has to slow up a bit, because all of a sudden there's cars feeding into his line coming towards turn 1. Norris yesterday started 7th place. Didn't have the best of the wet dry qualifying session on Friday, so he started 7th place, but actually only recorded an 8th place finish. Lost the position at the start of the race and never really recovered. So he needed actually some decent results for race 2 today, and he's qualifying again 3rd place for race 3 later on. So he's going to need to truly maximise that race, because unless he really charges through the field, I don't see how he's actually going to register any points today. It's going to be a hard push from 15th into 15th on in the order at the moment to climb into the top 10.
Great shot of the cars firing themselves out of the corners there on this lap. Joel Erickson in 2nd place has set the fastest first sector. However, in sector 2, he lost 3/10. So he gained a tenth in Sector 1, but he lost 3/10 and is down overall through Sector 2. So the gap between Eilert and Erickson was a second. It's going to grow. There is Lando Norris then, 15th place. And the trouble is now he's going to get stuck in the traffic all the way through the race, even if he's quicker than a lot of the drivers ahead. There aren't that many places and opportunities to overtake as Eilert strings together the fastest lap of the race so far, and that was all to do with the last sector. That final sector is absolutely critical. We saw a lot of drivers in qualifying yesterday, Lee and I were watching, that set very good first and second sector times and lost a lot of time in Sector 3. They looked like they were going to move up the grid and ended up going nowhere as Lando Norris gets very, very close to the tail of Harrison Newey, a bit too deep on the brakes, and he's going to drop back out of the corner here. So Lando's got to go on the attack. He's almost got nothing to lose here, because he's already out of the points and he's a long way out of the points. He's 15th. He's got to get up to 10th to get a point.
You also have to be careful to be diving in too rash a manner for a position, because if it goes wrong and you have an accident, what's going to be playing on the drivers' minds, it's going to be playing on the engineers' minds and all the people on the pit walls as they got another race in 4 or 5 hours' time. So they cannot be rash about making going for overtakes that are actually not really on. That was kind of so. Yeah.
Just looking at Gunter there on the other side, made a very good start. I think he actually had to slightly get out of it when Jake Hughes, of course, had to come across at him to avoid Lando Norris. So even though he got off the line well, he lost a bit of momentum as he went up through the gears.
And I think that's what I mean, is as the field began to avoid Norris, they kind of fed into what would have been his racing line off the grid. And that's one of the consequences of someone stalling. Right now, Eilert leads 1.2 seconds ahead of Joel Erickson. Guan Yu Zhu, who's currently 3rd place, he's an additional 1.3 behind the Swede. But you got Jake Hughes still sitting in 4th position. He's got David Beckmann in 5th place, just under 2 seconds behind him. But behind Beckmann, a little bit of a train. You got Maxi Gunter, you got Joey Mawson, you got Jen de Ruvela, you got Mick Schumacher, you got Ferdinand Habsburg, Mazepin. They're all less than a second apart from each other. So the gap from Beckmann all the way down to Mazepin on 11th place is less than 4.5 seconds.
That's right. Habsburg desperately trying to hang on to the final points paying position with Matsipan and PK just behind. So Callum Eilert leading the way. This is his 3rd season in the championship. It's his 3rd different team as well. He started with Carlin, had Red Bull backing immediately, and he was one of these drivers who came straight out of karting, the former European karting champion back in 2014. Following season 2015 was his debut in F3, finished 12th overall, got a win, got points in his first weekend at Silverstone, got a podium at the Nürburgring. Last year, he then switched to Van Amersfoort Racing, and Callum was a force to be reckoned with on occasion. He had a bit of bad luck along the way, but 6th place in the championship overall, 2 wins. His maiden wins at Paul Ricard and the Red Bull Ring, but he's already equalled that with a couple of victories so far this season. And up front, he's edging away. He's 1.5 seconds clear as we look at Jan de Ruvela there, the Indian driver in car number 27, who is still only about 0.5 of a second away from Joey Mawson, but still there, stuck in 8th place. His lap time last time around, 1:36.604, though, was not bettered by Mick Schumacher. So Mick, even though de Ruvela is sort of in the dirty air behind Joey Mawson, he's not really losing out to Schumacher behind, so the gap stays similar between 7th, 8th and 9th.
And I think that's one of the issues that drivers are going to be finding in this race, is the dirty air as they follow the cars in front. It's going to be difficult to get absolutely very, very, very close to the driver in front unless the guy in front makes a little bit of a mistake. And as the race goes on, that becomes more and more possible as the tyres begin to wear slightly. Some of the drivers are having slightly used tyres because they may be used in qualifying. So there's some drivers maybe even slightly newer tyres as we see a lock-up going into turn 1.
Yeah, it's Joey Mawson. That's going to bring de Ruvela onto his tail almost.
And that was
Harrison Newey having a go at Ralph Aron. So Ralph Aron, who was out of the race early yesterday after just clipping the back of Pedro Piquet. Ralph quick around here. He won a race with the Prema team last year at this circuit. Got a win and a podium in 2 of the 3 races. There he is, though, just ahead of the number 17 Van Amersfoort car of Harrison Newey. Harrison, who made a good start to yesterday's race and finished in 6th place.
Newey, yeah, he's showing himself to be quite feisty there, and doing very well to keep Norris behind him while also attacking. Newey's actually quite an improved presence this year, I have to say. He struggled a lot last year with the Van Amersfoort team, was often near the rear of the field, but he's actually shown this year he's improved a lot. He's got a lot more consistency. He's able to turn what he learned last year into good pace. as it were, and is showing on track. He's getting results. Okay, he's not winning races, maybe not necessarily scoring loads of podiums, but he's actually in the top 5, top 6 more often. And he's had a couple of races, I think it was in Po, I can't remember if it was Po or Monza, where he was actually in 4th place in one of the races and ended up losing out towards the end.
Yeah, Po was a really good weekend for him. He had 2 fourths, including in the Grand Prix race, the final race of the weekend. He had 2 fourths and a 6th. So overall, I'd say it was his best overall weekend that he's had in his 18 months so far on the championship. Now, Jake Hughes has just set the fastest lap of the race, 1 minute 35.7 for the British driver in the number 34 high-tech Grand Prix car. He is 1.5 seconds behind Guan Yu Zhu, who holds on at the moment to the final place on the podium. If he can keep that going, though, he'll be able to close the gap. There's still plenty of time left on the clock. And
one of the important things for Jake Hughes as well is he's actually pulled a 2.5 second gap to David Beckmann just behind. Yep. So Jake doesn't have to worry about anyone behind him. He's not going to be racing in his mirrors. He's just going to be absolutely concentrating on the Prema Power Team car, Guan Yu Zhu. That's going to be the target. He got a podium yesterday. He wants it followed up with a second podium after what has been admittedly quite a slow start to the season so far. For the high-tech racing team, it looks like they've actually found something this weekend and are really making inroads into the points now. Yeah, we had a quite a long chat with Jake after the race yesterday, and it feels like it's beginning to gel a bit more now that the results are coming. It gelled straight away, really. We've always worked well as a team together. We just haven't quite had the pace. But in terms of how he's settled into the team, I think he's fitted straight in since feels very at home there. But you're right, the results are beginning to come now. Remember, although high-tech, a lot of the engineers and the staff there are very, very experienced, it is still a relatively new team. It's their first season in F3 last year. And I think one of the other aspects of Hughes and high-tech in this championship now, and Ralph Aron to a degree as well, is yes, okay, they're probably out of the championship. I know it's only round 4, but they're so far behind the leading drivers from Prema Power Team and Motor Park that they would need a string of victories to bring them into it. What they can do, though, inadvertently, is still direct the aims of this championship, because now they're in a position where they can actually score points and score podiums and potentially score wins and actually deny points for what we would consider the regular championship challenging teams and regular championship challenging drivers. So Hughes, Aron can actually still play quite a significant part in this championship, even if they are not title contenders themselves. That's right. So, although Jake, I'm sure, if he can string a few results together now, and he's looked increasingly solid, would still very much, it's only the fourth event of the season, he'd still very much fancy his chances of getting stuck in there and battling for the overall championship title. Jake currently in 10th place, but we've seen how Max Gunter and other drivers string wins and podiums together. They can move up the order. As you look at Ferdinand Habsburg there, who holds on to the final place in the points, 10th. But Nikita Matipan, another high-tech driver, Jake Hughes' teammate, the 99 car, he's only 0.4 of a second behind, running a very close 11th. And just watching Ferdinand absolutely fighting the wheel. He's not turning in once. You can see it there. If you just see in the cockpit, he's really having to turn that steering wheel several times and absolutely thrashing the car around the corners. And maybe that's his driving style. Maybe that's how it makes him comfortable, or maybe he's actually maybe there's something not quite there and he's maybe missing a little bit of grip that he's having to turn it in several times. Maybe missing grip at the front end where he's having to turn in several times, but for a moment he's holding off Nikita Mazepin just because Mazepin still only 0.4 behind, and Habsburg's fallen just about a second behind Schumacher. Habsburg going well. He's certainly not one of the most experienced drivers out there. He was second in the Euro Formula Open Championship last year, but unlike other drivers, he hasn't come up through Formula 4 or Formula Renault Racing. And as I say, having a very impressive season there. He is in the 62 car, hanging on to position. Somebody else really impressing, as I said, in this race, in 5th place, is David Beckmann. Now remember, he missed part of the season, or the first 2 rounds of the season last year, because he wasn't old enough to race in F3. He was still only 15. But one of the rounds he missed was this one, because this was round 2 of the championship last year. So it's actually his first visit in an F3 car to Budapest. It's probably his first ever visit in a race weekend to the circuit. We've done some testing here, but he's doing a really good job in his new team Motor Park. There is a lock-up for Pedro Piquet. That's right in front of Ralph Aron. These are the two that came together in yesterday's race very early on, and Ralph says thanks very much, drives around him and gains a place. So that's a change for 12th position. And you know, Piquet had a very good qualifying session on Friday. He scored quite a good, I think it was 5th on the grid. Sixth. Yeah, good in the wet, wasn't he? So a very good qualifying session, but unfortunately since then it's really gone quite awry for him, because he had a first lap incident with Ralph Aron yesterday, and today Not the best qualifying for race 2, but he's 13th in the order now, so it's not quite worked out just as he would have liked.
No, Piquet was on the 8th row of the grid. He's going to be, I think, off memory, 15th on the grid for race 3 as well. Big wide shot there of very cloudy and slightly threatening skies here. That's the final turn 14. As over the little brown, slightly downhill run then into the second gear corner comes the race leader, Callum Ilott, who's 2.7 seconds clear now of Joel Erickson. And then you've got another 1.2 seconds back to Guan Yu Zhu in 3rd position. So Guan trying his best here to get a podium position, looking very strong. He's looked strong in the dry weekend. He just struggled a little bit compared to where he wanted to be in the wet qualifying session. But he was going strongly in the dry and free practice. So it's not a massive surprise to see Guan up there. Somebody else that's come up through Formula 4 racing, formerly runner-up in the Italian F4 Championship, which he actually contested with this team, with Prema, the Italian team who he races with now, but then switched to Motorpark for his first F3 season. He's backed by the Ferrari Driver Academy, and having spent much of his youth as a kart racer based in the UK, competing in the British Championships and the Euro Challenge, which he won, he's now based in Maranello, and they keep him very busy in terms of lots of training in between all these race weekends that he has. So a bright future ahead for Guan Yu Zhu.
Now, another Prema driver we've mentioned several times in this race, Maxi Gunter, 6th place, current championship leader, of course, drawing David Beckmann in for 5th place. He gained 3/10 on the 10th lap of the race. He actually gained another 10th on the first sector. Evens now as he actually gets within a second of the Van Amersfoort driver in front. Now, this is going to be interesting to see how Beckmann deals with the pressure of the championship leader, honing in on him. Will he be able to hold off the remaining 15 minutes and 15 seconds plus 1 lap of this race? That equates to, I think off the top of my head, 9 to 10 laps more of this race.
Yeah. So yeah, it's 33 minutes plus 1 lap. So you're looking at the squabble for 13th, 14th and 15th. Notable because it's got this man, Lando Norris, in the mix, who had from the 2nd row of the grid a very dodgy start. And Lando, of course, 3rd in the championship points. He's going to be 3rd on the grid for race 3, so he's got more opportunities here. But a little lock-up just ahead of him there for Harrison Newey. You've got the 2 Van Amersfoort cars just ahead. PK number 5 in 13th. Number 17 is Harrison Newey, son of Adrian Newey, who's here this weekend supporting his son in 14th. And then it's Lando Norris, who has a little look at the inside. So since the start, since losing all those places off the line, he's only made 1 place back up, which shows how difficult it can be to overtake here. It also shows, Lee, that even though if you're a quick driver who's good enough to qualify near the front and fight for the championship title, there's actually very little to choose between these drivers. So even the drivers who are 14th, 15th in the race are at a pretty similar pace to the front runners, which makes it even harder to come back through the order.
And the unfortunate thing for Norris is he just simply cannot get close enough to the car in front to be able to make an effort to make a difference. And again, he's going to be relying on Newey up front to make a mistake. The lockup we saw in turn 1 and the last lap around, that's the thing Norris is going to be looking out for, to maybe go for a move if maybe Newey just outbreaks himself at one corner. And of course Newey's doing the same thing for Piquet. He's waiting for Piquet to make a mistake, as we've already seen Piquet make a mistake, which allowed Ralph Aron through a few moments ago.
If there are 2 tracks where you don't want to be trying to come through the traffic, either the last 2 that we've been to, at Pau, around the streets of France, where it's pretty hard to overtake, and here at the Hungaroring. There then is Joel Erickson, last year's rookie champion, a BMW junior driver. Has already done some DTN tests over the winter, and the Swede, who celebrates his 19th birthday next week, making the most of a bad grid yesterday to score a championship points, and he'll be on pole position for race 3 later on. So it's been a slightly mixed weekend for him so far. He looks solid in 2nd, but he cannot hold on to the pace of Callum Ilott, who's 3.7 seconds clear now, and Callum is still pushing on. He's just at the fastest first sector of anybody. He's gone nearly a 10th quicker than Ericsson through that first sector. He's a couple of tenths quicker than Guan Yu Zhu through that sector as well. Jake Hughes is starting bit by bit to close the gap to Guan Yu Zhu. So 3rd and 4th, the gap is now less than a second. It's 0.9 of a second, and Jake pushing on to try and get his 2nd podium finish of the weekend if he can.
I think the situation with Callum Ilott, Chris, is that he is like Maxi yesterday, who led the race all the way through and was completely unchallenged, and towards the end he was still setting lap times in the kind of early 36s. Callum is not having to push his car. He's not having to drive in his mirrors. He's not having to defend in any way, shape or form. He is taking the optimum line each way through. He is driving in a sensible manner. He's not having to catch someone ahead, so he's not having to deal with dirty air. He's not having to push so hard that he's actually losing the grip from his tyres. He is taking his pace, and just to say that he puts in a 1 minute 35.6 fastest lap of the race. He's doing it really because at this stage he can. You know, he's not having any interruption from front or rear. He is just setting the pace. That is the absolute dream position to be in.
Mick Sumikko there, number 25, all out on his own in 9th place, looking to score his second points finish of the weekend. He was 9th yesterday. Callum Ilott at the moment is 4.4 seconds clear. Yesterday, Max Gunter won the race by 5.8 seconds. So Callum is on course to have an even bigger margin of victory. Somebody's kicked up the dust there just in front of Schumacher. That would have been 7th or 8th, wouldn't it? Would have been
Mawson or Ruvula.
Yeah. And anyway, they both seem to be okay, fine, and not losing too much time. But yeah, Ilott, this is very similar to the pace and performance that we saw yesterday. And
that is Gunter, isn't it?
Gunter running wide, actually. He was just in front of them in 6th place. It was quite a big cloud of dust, which is what took a while to settle, but nothing too dramatic. And Max Gunter is 1.2 seconds behind Beckmann in 5th place. He's 1.7 seconds clear of Mawson and de Ruvula, so he's looking pretty solid for 6th place. But again, he knows it's a long championship, 30 races, 10 race weekends, and you just got to bag the points where you're not in a position to challenge for a podium. Super slow-mo then of our race leader. This is from a few laps ago when he was not that far clear of Joel Erickson. He's now a country mile clear of him. And you can see there the suspension of the Hankook tyres working as they make their way out of the corners and over the curbs, and all the stress that's put on those tyres. But really impressive that Callum is able to keep this pace up. 135.6, very impressive. 135.8 he's just done, so he's within a couple of tenths of his best lap times. Yet this is a circuit which is hard on tyres. You'd expect the pace to really fall off at the moment, and it's just not happening. Callum is keeping it going, and he's exactly 5 seconds clear now. I
would just wonder, because obviously the teams are going to be work strategically with their tyres for this weekend. I wonder if they've probably put all new tyres on Callum's car for this race, yep, but possibly reserved 2 new and 2 old for race 3 when he starts on the front row of the grid. Maybe hope that he can actually jump Erickson at the start, as we see Mawson and de Ruvula really go hammer and tong through turn 4, now turn 5. Mawson just edging ahead. This is an opportunity for de Ruvula if he gets a good exit, maybe a little bit too wide. He's not going to try and dive down the inside there, although he did have a little bit of a look. Now down to the chicane as they exit in 7 to 8. Yeah, take quite a bit of curb through that chicane, 4th gear, then through turn 8. And Mawson made a mistake there. Look at the inside, halfway alongside. But yeah, I mean, it's not normally a place you could overtake that, but as you say, Lee, went out wide. So coming under a bit of pressure here, the Australian. Also to point out, yes, this is the battle for 7th and 8th. It's also the battle for the victory in the rookie class, because these are both rookies. You've got Mawson in 7th, de Ruvula in 8th, and then Schumacher in 9th are the top 3 rookies in this race. Lando Norris is the rookie points leader on 205. Jen de Ruvula, who was the rookie winner yesterday, 2nd on 179 points in that standings, ahead of Schumacher and Mawson, 3rd and 4th. Mawson basically lost 1.2 seconds in that middle sector there in that battle with de Ruvula, so I just wonder if maybe he's beginning to succumb to pressure. And obviously Mawson 1.3 seconds, 1.5 seconds than the guys who are in the top 6, as de Ruvula kind of sits in behind but doesn't get close enough. So I wonder maybe if Mawson is getting to the point where he is focusing so much on de Ruvula behind that he is actually just dropping pace. He's not looking ahead anymore. He's just driving to defend at this point. They've lost 2 seconds to Schumacher effectively in the last couple of laps, which is why Schumacher's come from 2.5 seconds behind de Ruvula to pretty much just in around a second behind him. Mawson, he's going to be a battle now to keep hold of his position if his mindset has completely changed, if it is kind of swapped into just defensive mode driving. Well, Joey certainly said yesterday after the race that he struggled with the tyres late on, and you begin to wonder if that's something similar happening here. And there is de Ruvula then in the number 27 car, still
just 18 years of age, like a lot of these drivers are in their late teens. Force India Formula One protege. As mentioned yesterday, he won the 1 in a billion talent hunt when he was a kart racer. That was run by Force India, the Formula One team. And then as a result of winning that and getting the support from that event, that scheme, he moved into cars in 2015, the Formula Renault Northern European Championship with Richard Dutton's Fortec squad, and finished in 5th place. He was the runner-up in the 2016 Winter Championship run at the Toyota Racing Series, which is run down in New Zealand, and took 3 wins, finished just behind Lando Norris. And then 9th in the Formula Renault Euro Cup, 4th in the Formula Renault Northern European Championship last year. Did the Toyota Racing Series again before coming into Formula 3, and got a couple more wins in 5th place. So he's been a very high achiever in his first few seasons of racing, and it's not a surprise really to see him up there. Well, maybe it is, because Formula 3 is such a high level of drivers. I think he's acquitted himself really well so far this season.
And of course, Daruvula and the likes of Lando Norris, Ferdinand Habsburg and Nikita Mazepin also did fall foul of one little element of this weekend, as we see Lando Norris making him having a look at Harrison Newey, can't make it work in turn 2, doesn't really get a switch. Actually, yeah, it's a bit of a wobble exiting turn 2, so he loses out there anyway. Norris, one of 4 drivers, along with Daruvula, Habsburg and Mazepin, who actually were caught out earlier on this weekend for being late to the drivers' briefing. So they actually had to show up at 7:30 on Saturday morning to help the marshals set up shop for the weekend,
yeah.
which is an incredibly novel penalty, but one I very much approve of. You know,
a couple of them had to do it twice, didn't they? Because they were late for a couple of briefings over the weekend so far. There was a lot of Norris getting close under braking to Harrison Newey, but still stuck down there in 15th place. Ilott 5.7 seconds clear now, so he's almost got the advantage, the same advantage at 5.8 seconds that's Max Gunter won with yesterday. Another lock-up. It's not going to do the tyres much good, this, for Harrison Newey. So you can see he's having to push hard to keep behind him, the number 31 car of Norris, and actually falling back a little bit now from his teammate Pedro Piquet. Lee mentioned tyres earlier on. There are tyre limits. You only have 3 sets of tyres to last for the 2 qualifying sessions and 3 races. Now, you have to change a set at a time, as Lee has hinted at already. You can just change 2 of your tyres, for example, going into a race, but you'd always expect to save a full set of tyres. We don't get information on who's got which tyres on, who's saved their best tyres for which race, but normally if you've got a pole position, you'd think that that's where you get your best tyres, your best chance of getting a win. So Callum Ilott flying along 135.9. he's the only one in the 135s at the moment. He was 4 tenths quicker than Erickson on the previous lap. He's now over 6 seconds clear. However, Erickson has just set the fastest first sector of anybody and has got 3 tenths back. Joel, that car seems to be very quick through the first sector, but through the second sector, whereas these fast, well, not mid-speed flowing corners, that is where Callum and the Prima car really does edge back away. So Erickson not entirely there with the setup of the car, I don't think, this weekend, but still pretty happy with the points that he's amassing.
But the thing is with Erickson, as you said, he set the fastest first sector of the race so far, then goes into the middle sector and drops 4 tenths.
Yep.
So it's
really struggling through that.
It's a yo-yo effect, and I think it's very much a case of the motor park team are probably set up with a higher straight line speed because they're getting the maximum coming down the start-finish straight. I think it's Daruvula is the only other driver that's coming close in his speed traps coming down the start-finish straight. So when you actually take that into account, and you also sector 1 also includes the long run up into turn 4. There's 2 straights where I think the motor park guys are actually, and actually I think Sato and Makino are doing the same with their motor park cars, whereas the Prema guys do seem to be a lot more comfortable through the middle sector, so probably set up with the kind of medium to slow speed corners in mind, better acceleration out of the corners, and of course especially turn 14, the final corner is quite important. It's a medium speed, slowish to medium speed corner, 3rd gear, 4th gear for some drivers, and that gets them a good acceleration onto the start finish straight. And if you get better acceleration, well, obviously that makes it more difficult for the guy behind to actually draft on and make an overtake.
It was very windy in yesterday's race. Now they had a proper full-on headwind going into turn 1. So the top speeds weren't that great. They were, I think 1 or 2 drivers said it was just about getting into 6th gear because we had so much of a headwind. So that would have perhaps affected yesterday the way they set the cars up. There's a bit of crosswind at the back as well, having to hang on to the car through that flat-out turn 11 in 5th gear. But it's definitely calmed down. It's still a bit of a breeze here, but much less windy than it was yesterday. Final 3 minutes left on the clock. There'll be another lap at the end once the time runs out. So, yeah, again, fastest first sector for Joel Erickson, but say last lap he gained 3/10 on the first sector. He lost 6/10 over the rest of the lap, and overall he's 3/10 down. As you look at Jan Daruval up there in the 27 car, running in 8th place.
As you see again, as you just mentioned, he is the fastest first sector, but drops nearly 4/10 in sector 2, and then drops an additional 2/10 in the final sector. So, yeah, I think it's definitely the long run into turn 1 and then the long run into turn 4 where Erickson is picking up huge pace and time, but it's just not working over the course of the entirety of the lap because he's losing too much time through the slower corners.
Super slow-mo here of Joel Erickson. Has the number 1 on the car. He's not the champion of last year. He was a rookie champion, but the champion has moved on. You may remember him. He's called Lance Stroll. He's from Canada, and he did quite well last year. And he's picked up a drive in Formula 1, of course, this year. But so number 1 goes to the rookie champion. Prema, the team that took Lance Stroll to the championship title. Rennie Rossen's team with their man in front here. Callum Ilott looking for his 3rd win of the season.
Lance, don't know this guy. Never heard of him.
No.
And apparently some guy from called Max Verstappen and Esteban Ocon came from this championship. Well, I've never heard of them either.
Well, it shows, doesn't it? I mean, the amount of drivers that are doing well from the last few years that have come directly from Formula 3. Obviously, Verstappen is the prime example, and Lance Stroll, and you've got drivers like Charles Leclerc who are edging up there as well. Antonio Giovinazzi has been in Formula 1, of course, as well, runner-up in the championship
and of course,
a couple of years ago.
The other main export from Formula 3 is Felix Rosenqvist, who may not be in Formula 1, but he seems to be driving in every single championship going.
Yeah, he's done,
whether it's sports car,
last couple of years, he's done DTM, he's done some GT racing, he's been out racing in the States, hasn't he?
He's racing P2 at Le Mans this weekend.
Formula E, he's been going well in, hasn't he?
Yeah. I think he's actually he did a touring car race in Sweden a few months back as well.
Yeah, former champion Felix Rosenqvist. It took him a long time to get to the championship title. One very fast, he got there in the end, but one very fast Swede has been replaced by another, of course, with Erickson coming up. And lots of quick Swedes coming through. There's another young one that might be making his way to this championship in the near future called Linus Lundqvist, who's been very impressive in the British Formula 4 Championship this year. So Ilott with 13 seconds left on the clock. So with this lap, +1, penultimate lap of the race. There he is, in the zone, in a world of his own. And we talked about what a great drive it was yesterday from Max Gunter, how smooth he was, how accurate and precise he was, no mistakes. For my money, this has been every bit as good. Callum Ilott, 7.1 seconds clear, in a world of his own. There's nothing between 2nd, 3rd and 4th in terms of their lap times. Erickson, Zhu and Hughes are very similar. Nobody can quite catch the other, but they've been consistently banging in pretty similar lap times. Not quite so much on that lap, but the previous lap, they all lapped within 1/10 of a second of each other. So the gap from Erickson to Zhu, 2nd to 3rd, is 1.1 seconds. The gap from Zhu to Hughes, 3rd to 4th, is 1.1 seconds as well.
So this will actually bring Callum Ilott above Lando Norris in the championship standings. Norris is actually going to drop to 4th if it stays like this, with Gunter jumping to 172 and Erickson going up to 158. So the gap will shrink. Erickson will go up to the 2nd in the championship. The gap will shrink, but Gunter will still have a reasonably healthy lead. But again, when it comes to race 3 later on, Gunter not the best qualifying. Callum and Erickson up there again. Lando starting P3. So Gunter may really need to make a mega start for race 3 if he wants to go into the next round at Norris Ring still ahead of this championship.
Daruval is going to close the gap in the rookie championship to Lando Norris as well. So currently on 205 and 179 points respectively. We're on the final lap of the race then. Callum Ilott, 8 seconds clear. Looks in the mirrors, he just sees the Hungaroring and the beautiful countryside around us. He doesn't see any other cars because he is well clear now. Erickson has lost a tiny bit of time to Zhu, but the gap is still 1 second. There is Guan Yu Zhu. It's amazing what you can do, what you can achieve if you carry on driving at 100% in the last lap and a half of a race to try and close the gap to the driver ahead. Always a little bit easier, in a sense, to try and chase somebody down than to defend from them. But Guan pushing hard, but he is looking for his first podium of the season. Callum Ilott, though, meanwhile, is on course for what is going to be, in total, his 5th career win in the FIA Formula 3 European Championship. Here he comes. He rounds the final turn. Callum Ilott, the British driver for the Italian Prema Power team, takes the victory here. His first of the weekend, his 3rd of the season. Beautiful drive, Callum. He wins. 2nd place to Joel Erickson. 3rd over the line for the podium is Guan Yu Zhu. 4th place to Jake Hughes. And 5th place should be going the way of David Beckmann. He crosses the line now. Max Gunter, championship leader. 6th place where he started. And Joey Mawson managing to pull away again at the last couple of laps from Daruvula for 7th and 8th. And Joey Mawson taking a rookie victory. In fact, that is Joey Mawson's first rookie victory, I think, of the season. So well done, Joey. The Australian having a good weekend here. Daruvula, 8th, Schumacher 9th, and the final points finisher, Ferdinand Habsburg in 10th place.
That's Zhu's first podium in Formula 3, European Formula 3. So good effort by the Prema Power team driver. And that's the kind of boost he needs as well. So he had a difficult season last year with Motor Park.
Well, it's his first podium of the year. He did get a couple of podiums last year, yeah.
And sorry, yes, that's what I mean. So he's actually stringing a lot more points finishes together this year. It'll be a nice boost for him up the order. But what can you say about that man, Callum Ilott? Absolutely imperious. 8.6 seconds ahead at the flag and did not look troubled whatsoever.
No, beautiful drive, goes across to see the checkered flag and give a little wave to the team who, of course, do such a fantastic job in prepping these cars. And the Prema team with another trophy to try and find a gap for somewhere in the factory back in Italy.
Well, I've heard they're actually looking for planning permission for another shed for the trophies that they seem to be winning at the moment.
At the moment, like
well, that may or may not be true.
It's going to have to be a consideration soon, isn't it, the way they're going? Yeah, Prema won the 2011 championship title with Roberto Meri. They won in 2012 with Daniel Huncadella. Raffaele Marciello won for them in 2013. Esteban Ocon won for them in 2014. Felix Rosenquist, we mentioned, winning in 2015. And last year, they took another title with Lance Stroll. And they've been winning the teams' championships in all those years as well. Good drive that from Guan Yu Zhu as well to get 3rd place. He was really pushing on at the end to try and close that gap to Erickson. He started last season like an absolute rocket ship. I mean, he got on the podium in his first weekend at Paul Ricard with a 3rd place finish. He got another podium here actually at Budapest. He likes this track, and he got onto the podium in the 2nd race of the weekend here. But that was it then. He didn't go onto the podium again for the rest of the year. He got lots of point scoring finishes. Got a couple of 4th, 5th, 6th. Pretty good weekend at Imola towards the end of the season. But he started so well that even though overall he did well, top 6 in the rookie championship, it perhaps promised a little bit more than it delivered in the end. There then, confirmation of the results. 22 laps, 8.6 seconds, even bigger than Max Gunter's winning margin yesterday. For Callum Ilott, the winner. Joel Erickson 2nd, Guan Yu Zhu 3rd, Jake Hughes in 4th, David Beckmann with a terrific drive, his best of the season in 5th place. Max Gunter 6th, Joey Mawson winning the rookie class in 7th, Daruvula 2nd best rookie in 8th, Schumacher 3rd best rookie in 9th, Habsburg in 10th, Matsipan was just outside the points, 0.8 of a second away from the points in 11th. Ralph Aron was just behind him in 12th place, then Piquet 13th, Norris 14th. So he got past Newey at the end. We didn't see that, but Norris up to 14th, but no points. There is the point standings. 170 for Gunter, 158 for Erickson, 144 now for Callum Ilott. And as Lee predicted, down to 4th place goes Lando Norris. So, yeah, 14th place for Lando. Newey was 15th, Sato 16th, Makino 17th, and Andres finishing in 18th. And all the cars finished the race.
Yeah, and no incident, no incident of controversial incident, shall we say, in that race. Just the stall, the semi-stall for Norris at the start, which kind of squeezed up the right-hand side of the grid and probably stalled Gunther's own taking up positions as they were going into turn 1. But all finished, good race. Yeah. Some very, very mature drives out there.
Yeah, it's a high calibre this year, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean,
all the way through the field.
I think that's one of the positive things. We're not seeing silly errors. We're not seeing stupid mistakes. We're not seeing things that should be frowned upon. We're actually seeing some very, very good, high quality driving. Some very, very mature stuff out there. And that, when you talk about a field that's mostly 16, 17, 18-year-olds, that's actually a very, very, very positive aspect, a positive light to watch Formula 3 on at the moment. As we see the winner
is the moment. Callum Eilert steps out of the car. Number 1, it says, his new helmet design for this year, which is very flash indeed. And first thing he does, there's Rennie Ross, the team leader, team principal, the glasses on, is thanks the team. And he's never out of the fight in the championship, but he's very much in the thick of it now, closing the gap up again. And Callum is going to be on the front row of the grid for the race later on today as well. He's going to be starting second on the grid for that one. So it could be a very strong points haul for him. And
I do think that maybe he's gone into that with 4 fresh tyres because it was his pole race, and maybe he might have 2 worn tyres going into race 3 later on. And that may have been the reverse for Erickson as well. Right? You assume Erickson's going to save a full set for race 3 later on today, so maybe that's why Joel didn't quite have the pace to live with Callum in that race. There's Mom in the middle of the picture there, ready to roar as Callum comes onto the top step of the podium in a few moments' time. There'll be a top 3 podium for the top rookies as well. And Callum, even at the end of the race, setting very, very quick lap times, warming it 36.5 on his last lap of the race. Didn't look like he was trying. That shows just what a supreme drive it was. Guan Yu Zhu, we saw him celebrating his first podium of the year. And he's looked very, very good here so far this weekend, finishing in 7th place yesterday, but going really well in the dry. Joel Erickson finishing in 2nd place, racking up some more points, but he'll be looking 100% for that victory later on from pole position. Joel so far this year, having had a very, very strong season and having picked up 3 wins. He hasn't been to an event and not won yet. He got a win at Silverstone, he got a win at Monza, he got a win at Po. So look to follow the trend, and we see some more super slow wins. If you're a race winner, Callum Eilert, Prema Power Team with the winning driver, Motor Park 2nd with Ericsson, Prema 3rd with Zhu, and High Tech GP coming home 4th place with Hughes. And Van Amersfoort Racing getting a rookie victory with Joey Mawson. That'll move him a lot higher up the rookie standings as well, with his first rookie win of the year. Norris will be really hoping to get a good result later on, because although we still say it's early in the season, it's only the 4th event, that's 11 races of the 30 already down. So he'll be hoping to not lose out too much later on. He's going to need to make a big recovery after today's race, as Callum Eilert takes the top spot on the podium. Well-deserved victory. Very well-deserved victory.
Absolutely, yeah, very mature drive that. Callum Eilert then to the top step of the podium for the 3rd time this season. 2nd place to Joel Erickson, 3rd place to Guan Yu Zhu. But it's the 18-year-old from Cambridge who now hears the British national anthem. A very proud moment, but there's more work to be done. But he's going to enjoy this. There have been some fantastic trophies on offer here so far this weekend. Zoltz Gulev, the president and CEO of the circuit, handing then the winner's trophy to Callum Eilert. If you work for Prema Power Team, you've got very strong neck muscles because you're always having to look up at the podium, aren't you, at the end of a race. Manfred Sandblicker from Hankook, who provide the tyres, and in the team trophy to our representative from Prema. They're tying with Theodore Racing these days, as you can see, which came about last season. And now we get our 2nd place trophy from Mr. Guilai from the circuit to Joel Erickson, who sort of half smile. That's all right, he says. I want to get up there where you are later on this afternoon, Callum. Is exactly what he's thinking. And Manfred Sandbichler presents the 3rd place trophy to Guan Yu Zhu.
And I think this is basically where the race suits and the clothes for the Prema guy get destroyed in a in a bale of champagne, of morning champagne.
Maybe, yeah. So you've got to have some spares, haven't you, if you've got 2 races in a day. It's the chap on the right I'm worried about. He's going to get it from everybody, isn't he? Yeah. He's certainly going to get it from Callum and Guan.
You'll watch Thomas the photographer run out of the way.
Oh, there you go. Right. Callum's quick on the track. He was the last one to attack with the champagne there, wasn't he? He's been very polite and British about that. He didn't get the team at all. He's saving that one, I think. Maybe it's a Father's Day present. Did you see him pick the cork up and put it back in? So the podium cleared after the second race of the weekend. Another one to come, and it'll be Joel Erickson on pole position, but 12 thousandths of a second covering the top 4 in that qualifying session based on their second fastest lap times. Callum Ilot's going to line up second. Lando Norris will be going through all the data to try and figure out what he can do to get these starts sorted out. It looked like it had been improving for him, but that was difficult. It may not necessarily be in there. Reddy Rossad, he's absolutely chuffed to bits that everybody's getting soaked and he's down there staying dry. And we're going to have Guan Yuju fourth on the grid for the race later on. David Beckmann and Max Gunter will round out the top 6. Jet Hughes with a bit more work to do in race 2. He starts 7th. Jeremy Mawson, Nikita Matsipan and Jan Daruvala are going to round out the top 10. As we look now at some highlights from race 2 here at the Hungaroring.